The reading this morning from Living Wisely, Living Well by Swami Kriyananda. For today, September 24, view challenges as stimulants to your spiritual ascent. Twice when I was a child, bullies much larger and stronger than I attacked and beat me. Both times I won against them by refusing to admit defeat. Afterward, they avoided me. Never surrender your will to anyone. If you can maintain your integrity, others may accuse you of betrayal, but it is to yourself you must remain true. Let people say about you what they will. Be strong in yourself. If you can preserve your will unbroken, you will always, in the end, come out victorious. This reading today and the subject, which is overcoming life's challenges, is probably one of the great topics to talk about, because I think for many people it seems like life is nothing but an unending series of challenges. And in fact, that is in a way the whole idea of this life. There was a great saint who said about living in this world, she said that this life or this world is thy ship and not thy home. This world is thy ship and not thy home. And this world is a place that we're passing through, but it has a purpose, and it's not without meaning. And its purpose is to help us to grow in freedom and bliss, to grow closer to God, to perhaps work out some of our past karma, or if you're at that point, to help others to work out their karma. And so, if you change your perspective on this world and view it as something that we're passing through, and you sort of zoom out, in a sense, and get the bigger picture, then the tests of this world have meaning. Everything that happens in this world has more meaning. And we also learn how to respond in the right way. The opposite approach to that is to zoom in and get caught up in the details, to get caught up in the tests just as difficulties that have overwhelming, sometimes, power and reality. Yet if we can zoom out again and see this world as a ship, as a place that we're passing through and not as our home, we can respond to challenges much, much more effectively. We sometimes ask, why do we have tests in life? Why is life difficult? And it's a good question to ask. We don't want to be sitting there asking, why me? Because then it becomes a focus on ourselves, and it's a contractive approach to these things. But it is good to ask why when tests come. And there's two reasons, and I'll be getting into this a little bit later. One of them is to help us grow. And the great woman saint, Anandamoyi Ma, she said that when you give your life to the Guru comes and, as Swami Kriyananda would point out, takes charge of our life. And that includes everything that comes to us. And Anandamoyi Ma said to try to see everything that comes to us as coming from the Guru, even challenges and tests. Swami Kriyananda once wrote to her, because he was facing the biggest and most difficult test of his life, and he wrote to her about this test. And she wrote back and she said to him, try to see this as the grace of your Guru. And he said that was the last thing in the world that he could see it as at the time. But later he saw that it was true. It was a blessing and a gift from the Guru to help him to grow spiritually, to help him to grow in freedom. Anandamoyi Ma put it in a different way. She said that if you look at a mother raising children, she's teaching these two children how to walk. And one of the children needs a comforting hand and words of encouragement to learn how to walk. The other one may be a more rough and tumble type of character, and the mother maybe just gives it a push on the back and launches it off on its own. But in both cases, the divine is helping this child to learn how to walk on its own. And so try to see tests in that way as ways for us to develop a certain amount of a certain quality in life. Some tests come to help us develop willpower, especially like this reading that Swamiji mentioned today. It's probably, you can all say that almost all tests in some way help us to develop willpower. Maybe it will help us to try to learn detachment in some way, or selflessness and self-giving. But in some way, everything that comes to us, every challenge that comes to us in life, can truly be seen as a gift from God to help us to grow in freedom and in bliss. One of the great saints, the saintly disciples of Yogananda, who really is a wonderful example of overcoming challenges, but how to view tests in life, was this Yogananda's greatest woman and his most advanced woman disciple, Sister Gyanamata. This book, God Alone, which includes many letters from Gyanamata to friends and students, gives an extraordinary, beautiful insights into how to approach the spiritual path, how to approach challenges and tests, how to develop right attitudes and all these things. She gave a very interesting example in her own life about this aspect of the guru-disciple relationship. Swami Kriyananda said that about the last 20 years of Sister Gyanamata's life were nothing but an unending stream of health challenges and sufferings and pains and really true extreme difficulties. And he pointed out that she was extremely close to the Guru, to Yogananda. And he said, Swamiji said that Yogananda could have freed her at any time from these challenges if he so chose to. And he could have removed this karma from her or helped her with it. And in fact, he did just the opposite in a very interesting way. Several times her karma was such that she was to leave the body and leave this world. And Yogananda actually prayed to God, prayed to the Divine Mother, that she stay in this body. Why? So that she could suffer through more challenges and difficulties. And it sounds very, very strange. But in fact, what Swamiji pointed out was that for Sister Gyanamata to become fully liberated, she needs to go through all these tests. And that's what the Guru comes to us for, is to help us to become fully liberated, not to give us necessarily a very easy life and a comfortable life, sometimes to challenge us, to test us. But if we see everything that comes to us as the grace of the Guru, in these challenges even, then we also draw on the strength and the power and the divine bliss and the ability to overcome all tests and challenges. And that's what happened to Sister Gyanamata in the end. After those many years, when she left the body, Yogananda said she was completely liberated for all time. And that's exactly what she needed in order to do that. Swami Kriyananda Riley said one time that if people really understood the guru-disciple relationship just on the surface, and they saw the results of it, which was these many, many years of challenge and suffering, they would probably turn and flee in the other direction. But if they looked deeper and saw how the Guru is helping us to overcome, to experience divine bliss, and to rise above all duality, all tests and challenges in the end, then you understand what the Guru-disciple relationship is about. I'm just going to read just a very short part of a note from Sister Gyanamata to one of her friends who was going through some tests. A master does not care whether you suffer or not, whether your feelings are hurt or not, because he knows that when his work for your soul is accomplished, all suffering will be over for you. One night at dinner not long ago, our Guru said, "All suffering is from Satan." It was some time before I got the meaning, though it is obvious. A perfect soul is all bliss. You cannot hurt its feelings, nor bring tears to its eyes. And so when we tune in to the consciousness of the Guru, what he gives us is the ability, the power to experience God as divine bliss in all circumstances. And so when tests come, see them as opportunities to develop particular qualities. Again, courage, steadfastness, especially willpower, detachment, self-forgetfulness in the sense of forgetting the little self and remembering the divine self. And so when challenges come in life, you'll see that the great saints experience many challenges, oddly enough. In fact, I think seemingly more than most people do. So when these things come, embrace them in a way, welcome them in a way it helps to understand again that this world is thy ship and not thy home. And yes, we must put out the energy and the will to try to fix the, quote, the problems in our life. But don't look to the results of the problem itself. Look more to your inner self and the spiritual qualities that are being developed through the energy that you put out. It's a very strange conundrum sometimes, because we are having to, these tests are given to us to overcome. And so whether it's a health challenge or a financial challenge, in the end, it's not about the end result. Yet we still have to play the game and put out all the energy and willpower to reach the end result of perhaps better health, or at least try to, because it's all in God's hands. It's all about divine freedom. But really, again, it's about developing spiritual qualities. So try to see everything as coming from the Guru, and you will see in the end that when you practice all of your daily life in that way, you'll find that even in the challenges, that the Guru will also give you the grace and the blessings to overcome those challenges. He gives us the test, but he also gives us the way out, which again, in the end, is really only divine bliss. But on the way to that experience of divine freedom, we also do have to develop willpower, courage, energy, steadfastness, unconditional devotion and love. And in the end, we are given the power to overcome all challenges by developing those deep spiritual qualities. Tests do another thing to us, or challenges. One thing, like I've been saying, is they help us to develop particular qualities, but there's another thing they do for us. Sister Yoganamata, one of her great sayings, this book of hers is really quite extraordinary, because it gives a different aspect than many of Yogananda's disciples to the spiritual path. And she's very practical, very wry in her wisdom, very steadfast, and she really had to put out a lot of willpower to overcome an extraordinary amount of pain and suffering physically, is what I'm told. But one of her sayings that we hear at Ananda on occasion, that one's religion is tested in the cold, hard light of day. One's religion is tested in the cold, hard light of day. And what that means is that when we go through life, it's very easy to be calm and detached and loving and kind, sitting in your meditation room before the murtis of the gurus and the photos and their images. But then we go out into the world, and all of a sudden a test hits us and we get very upset, for example. And what happens is that this is the second reason why God gives us challenges, because it helps us to see what we have to work on, whether it's patience or kindness, what particular quality we still have to develop. And so it's sort of just like a test that we take, an examination to enter a school, and we get the wrong answer and we understand what it is that we have to work on. So this is the second reason for tests. Swami Kriyananda tells a wonderful story about an Indian saint, a great devotee of Krishna named Namdev, who would have extraordinary visions of Lord Krishna. Again, like many people, and not quite maybe that degree, have this experience of God very easily while in the meditation room. And Namdev was visiting a village one day with a group of people, and there was a very eccentric, he was a saint, but he wasn't known as a saint. He was in some ways, but he was also very unusual, eccentric, and he was a potter by trade. And there was a crowd of people, and this potter was walking around this audience, and he would rap his knuckles onto people as he was walking around the audience. And Namdev had a little bit of spiritual pride still because of his experiences of Krishna, and he thought, I'm really great because I have these great spiritual experiences. And this potter was going around, and he didn't show due deference to Namdev, because he went right up to Namdev and rapped his knuckles on Namdev's head very, very hard. And Namdev reacted with a lot of anger, and why are you doing this to me? I'm a great saint, you shouldn't be doing this. And the potter just looked at the audience and the crowd and announced very loudly, this pot has a crack in it. And that's how potters test a pot for a crack. They rap their knuckles on it, and if it vibrates, that means there's a crack in it somewhere. They can tell by the sound of the wrapping of the knuckles. And Namdev understood that indeed his religion was being tested in the cold, hard light of day, and at that moment he had not passed that test because that pot still had a crack in it, which was his reactions. So also watch your reactions to tests. In a sense, really, the only thing that causes real suffering is our reactions in the end. Physical pain itself is neutral. Sister Ganamata very often said this, she said that when she would pray to God, and she recommended this as a way of praying, she said, change no circumstances, change me. And what she was saying by that is that the real cause of suffering is not the event, it is our reaction to it. And when a, quote, a negative event happens to us, to a saint who's in divine bliss, there's no reaction because they're experiencing divine bliss. It may be a little bit annoying in some way, but they are fully in God's bliss and nothing can touch them when they're in that state. But when we're not in that state, when something comes to us, we react negatively. We push it away. We think, oh, I don't want pain. I've had enough pain. And then that pain becomes suffering. Suffering is just the reaction to what really is a neutral event, which is just the sensation of pain. And as long as we're reacting to events, either positive or negative, in the sense of depending on good things happening to us to be happy, and then of course negative things happen to us and we get sad, then we're in duality. And we're really trying to achieve union, which is oneness with God, with divine bliss. And then there's no taking us up or down from that state of divine bliss. But until then, we're going to be caught up in our reactions, what Swami Kriyanandaji would call the reactive process, which is what Kriya Yoga is really about. One of the main things it does, it gives us control of our reactions so that we don't react negatively to negative events. We don't react sort of giddily and sort of in a very surface, emotionally happy way to positive events. It gives us control of the life force in the spine so we can direct it to the spiritual eye, unite it there, and experience God as bliss under all circumstances. And so tests also come as a way of letting us know where we still have to work on in our lives. And so work on controlling the reactive process, work on changing your identification from this little self, change your identification of this world as your home to just a passageway that we're here to serve. It's a school in a sense. Also try to see that everything that comes to you is, again, from the Guru. It's almost like the Guru's curriculum for you very personally. And when we have this really complete self-offering to the Guru and this complete surrender to the Guru's will, then the Guru, again, takes charge of our life. And every challenge and test that comes to us really is his curriculum, very, very individually designed for each one of us. And so when challenges come, try to actually have not just the reaction that is normal with most people of, oh no, not this. Instead say, okay, Guruji, I appreciate this curriculum that you've been given to me. Give me your strength and help me to understand what it is you want me to learn. And thank you for helping me in this way. And so you'll find that challenges in the end become really great blessings from God and the Guru. Just like Swamiji, that great challenge in his life that he wrote to Anandamoyi Ma about, really become his greatest blessing in his life in the end. And he saw that later, he said. In the moment, he said it was hard to see it as the Guru's grace, but in the end, that's what he saw it as because it helped him to overcome and become free. Now, life will, in some way, always be imperfect. And again, try to have the perspective that this world is going to be imperfect. No matter how hard we try to fix it and make it just perfectly right. I was married for 25 years. My wife was Maria. Many of you, I think some of you met her. And she passed away. She left the body a few years ago. And she told an interesting analogy one time. Just a few weeks before she left the body, she started having some symptoms, and she knew intuitively that her time was very close, but she didn't tell others about it yet at that point. And she gave a last Sunday service as we were traveling. It was the last time she really even spoke to people. But she knew what was happening. It was, in a way, it was her parting words of advice. And she said something that compares to something Yoganandaji said. She said that we think that if we can fix everything in our life, then we'll be happy. If we fix our health, we fix our finances, everything is just so, then finally we'll be content and happy. She said it doesn't work that way. And the way this delusion catches us is that we're able to fix one thing in our life. And the analogy she used, the example was getting the perfect cup of coffee at Starbucks or wherever. And once you get that perfect cup of coffee, you realize that, I can fix this aspect of my life and make it work. That means that I can fix this other aspect of my life. Health, finances, career, relationships. And this delusion comes that we can fix everything and then we can be very happy. And it just doesn't work that way. Yogananda told this in a different way. Told a story of a man who was very successful, had a business, nice marriage, and his wife left the body at a young age. And as this man himself in later years, he prayed to God, in my next life, give me a wife that lives to a long age so that we can be companions throughout life. And God gave him his wish. In his next lifetime, he reincarnated. He had a successful business. His wife lived a long time. And this lifetime, what happened was that his wife lived a little too long for his liking. And so it was a trouble for him to help her in old age. And so he prayed to God for something else. I can't remember what it was, but in the next life, his own health failed at an early age. And so he prayed to God that his health be good throughout his life. And it went on and on and on and on. There was always something wrong, and there was always something he was praying for his next life. And he was always reincarnating again and again and again. Finally, he got the message in one lifetime. He finally woke up, as many of us do, and he said, Lord, I don't want anything, but I just only want you, and I only want your bliss. All these other things don't matter. Just give me your bliss. And in fact, Yogananda said this was the man's last lifetime. He became free in God's bliss. Because in the end, that is really the only thing that will ever fulfill us. All these other things are just ways to trick us into thinking that this is going to make us happy, that's going to make us happy. But as long as we're looking for happiness outwardly, we're still caught in duality, the ups and downs of life, and we'll still be having these negative reactions, positive reactions. So go to God in the end, through all challenges of life, and say, Lord, I only want you. I only want your bliss. Teach me how to live in thy bliss. Teach me how to experience bliss under all circumstances. Give me your curriculum to help me to grow towards that bliss. Help me to understand why challenges are coming to me, and help me to put out the right type of energy to overcome, that I can develop those particular spiritual qualities that can be helpful. One thing that I've found helpful in my own life is there's Swami Kriyananda told a story of a Christian saint, Saint Teresa of Avila, because it seems if you look at the lives of the saints, they have, if anything, more challenges than the ordinary person. I know Swami Kriyanandaji, his life was chock full of so many tests and challenges. And he told the story of Saint Teresa of Avila, who was a great Catholic saint in Spain. And she served God throughout her whole life. Even as she was an elderly woman, she was traveling around the country, starting new convents and monasteries. And she was traveling one day, and she was riding a horse. And they were crossing a raging, very cold river in the wintertime. And the horse threw her off into the river just as it was crossing the river, and she almost drowned. She made it up to the other side of the banks. And she crawled up, and there she had a vision of Christ right in front of her, appeared to her. And she looked at Christ, and she said, well, Lord, why are you giving me these tests? I'm serving you, and I'm doing all these things. Why? And Christ, probably with a wry smile, said, Teresa, this is how I treat all of my friends. And really what Christ was saying was, what I've been saying is that the Guru gives us tests and challenges to help us to become inwardly free, not to become outwardly successful or healthy or all these things. And he may give us that too. And very wryly, with a great sense of humor, when Christ said, this is how I treat all my friends, Teresa of Avila said, Lord, that's why you have so few. And it's true in that way, that God has very few friends in this world, because people are looking for outward success, outward joys, and outward pleasures. I'm going to end by reading just a couple stanzas from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is Krishna giving this exact same advice. He talks about those who either do rituals, but those who just earn some good karma in this world by doing right actions. They get something, but it's not much. This is chapter 9, stanza 21. For those who do have good karma, after enjoying those lofty regions of the astral plane for a time, and when the merits they have acquired there have been exhausted, they return to earth. By following the scriptural regulations in their desire for celestial rewards, they endlessly repeat the cycle of ascent and return. And I love Swami Kriyanandaji's wry commentary on this. He says, endlessly repeated last-minute reprieves, followed by a return in chains to the same old prison, this world. What a choice destiny. Then he adds, reading scripture, obeying its commandments, is surely sattvic or self-elevating, and is therefore not something to be criticized or condemned, but you can't joke about it. And yet how far short it leaves one of the fulfillment every soul deeply craves. And then Krishna, the next stanza, he says, to those who meditate on me as their very own, their hearts ever united to me by incessant inward worship, I supply their deficiencies and make permanent their gains. And so the highest teaching of all is to love God, tune into the consciousness of God and the Guru as divine bliss. And when we experience that divine bliss, nothing can shake us, nothing can bring us down in the end. And that is the goal of all of life. I'm going to close with a reading from Yogananda. He said, your job for now is to get to God. Don't worry about all the karma you still have to complete. Let God worry about that. First, destroy in yourself the source of karmic involvement. That source is your attachment to the ego. Once the ego is immersed in him, then any actions you perform will no longer revert to yourself. This is the state of the Jivan Mukta, one who is free inside even while living in this world. Being inwardly free, nothing he does can ever affect him again. Joy and blessings to us all.